All right, hey Lauren, this is a little update on Maple. So my audio didn't come out very good from the video itself, and so I'm redoing it on my little lapel mic here, but I'm dubbing it over. But I want you to notice as I go in to catch Maple here, how she was looking at me as I went into the pen, but then as soon as I kind of walked up to her to a certain point in her bubble, her focus went away. And so what I did was I stayed there until her focus came back, and then I backed off. I didn't go right in and push in and catch her there. I was aware of where her focus was. Then she kind of just left, but I wasn't really asking for anything at that point, so I let her leave. And then she came around and look how good she's facing me here, ready for whatever I'm going to ask her to do. So it's kind of like she realized that I was aware of where her mental state was, and then she's reciprocating by being here, present, ready for whatever. So here I'm just doing a couple of approaches and releases, and then when I feel like she's ready to be caught, I go ahead and put the halter on. You can see as I'm putting the halter on, she's staying present. Her eye is here. Her eye's not turning away from me. She's just very present, which is perfect. So this is how you want them um, before you go do anything more advanced. I got a couple of knots in my lead rope here that I got to get out. So, but notice how present she's staying here. She's not dissociating. She's not getting distracted by other horses or scared of stuff. Her feet are still. Now she hasn't licked and chewed yet, and I think in a minute here I'm just gonna wait for a lick and a chew once I get this lead rope untangled. She checks back in with me. This is all really good. This is the perfect place just to wait for a lick and a chew. I know it can seem monotonous just waiting when you're like, the horse is ready, let's just go. But horses don't work on a timetable like we do, and you gotta wait for them to process. But I love how connected to me she's staying. She's not dissociating at all. She's very present. I like that. We just now need to wait for that lick and chew. Um, if you can see it, you can't see it at the moment. You might back it up a little bit, but you'll notice her bottom lip was either even with her upper lip or even a little bit sucked in. There's a lick and a chew. And probably now, when she finishes this lick and a chew, you should be able to see, yeah, there you can see it. Her bottom lip is hanging down a little bit lower than her top lip. It's a really good indication of whether or not they're relaxed, is whether that bottom lip is hanging down. So you can see she's quite a bit more relaxed now than she was before. Look how much blinking she's doing with her eyes. She just looks way more relaxed. So this is a really good point for her to be at to just go on with your day and whatever you're going to do. So now I just lead her out of the pen. Notice as I bring her through this gate, I'm able to send her through. She's not walking on top of me. She's not trying to pass me. There, I sent her through the gate. And now as I lead her down this alleyway, you can't see her behind me, but she should stay at, a reasonable distance behind me. Here I kind of check in. Now she dissociated a little bit. I think I get her attention back here. Kind of came back, and right there it really comes back. That's the kind of focus you want to get every time. But I love that she's not walking past me, walking over me, anything like that. All right, so then I went ahead and went and saddled her and brought her in the pen, and I set up a couple of cameras, but my iPhone wasn't working, so all we have is the GoPro footage. But so she was in a great mental place when I caught her. She was in a good mental place the whole time I was saddling. Brought her in the pen, and she's still good, but you can see right here she's a little bit dissociated. She kind of was about to walk past me and then stopped, but she still just doesn't look balanced or quite as relaxed as she was when I first caught her, right? So instead of just going ahead and jumping on her, I'm going to do a little bit of groundwork here to get her back to that same present, calm mental state that she was in earlier. I think that's what I'm discussing here, but the audio didn't come out. So you can see how her front leg is her front left leg is out more. She just doesn't look balanced. She doesn't look very, very present. I think the first thing I'm going to do here is send her to the right. She's already set up. It would be a lot easier for her to go to the left, right? But she wouldn't learn to be balanced and focused and facing me if I sent her left in the way she's already set up going. So instead I sent her to the right, and she kind of had to rearrange her body parts to go to the right. So here what I'm going to start checking on is that anytime those reins come tight, she should give to the reins and come in. There I asked her to stop, and she didn't really stop, so I sent her the other direction. Once again, the reins kind of come tight right there, and she comes into them, but I'd like her to actually not have to hit the end of the reins. She's kind of thinking to the outside of the circle instead of continually bending around me. There she stopped well. She didn't really face up, so I went ahead and sent her the other way. So the good part here is that she is getting off the pressure of the reins. The bad part is that she does sometimes hit the outside of the circle. She's not staying soft through the whole circle. And you'll notice that when I ride her here in a second, that a lot of times she it's like she's riding in a straight line or even out to the right or left, whichever way is the outside of the circle. And I continually have to bring her into the inside. Here I'm checking on speed control and making sure that I can ask her to speed up from a walk to a trot and then slow back down to a walk. You can see sometimes she gets a little bit pissy ears when I ask her to speed up. And this is something I was going to mention too. I think you probably should have a chiropractor look at her if you haven't done that recently. I can't pinpoint any one thing, and I'm not even saying that there necessarily is a chiropractic issue, but just a few indicators like the pissy ears when you ask her to go faster. And then my saddle kept slipping both sides when I was riding her. So I think there might be some stuff going on in her back, but I'm not an expert in that stuff by any means, but it never hurts to have any horse chiropracted at any point. So I would definitely recommend eliminating that as a possible point, because if she is in pain somehow, obviously we want to eliminate that before we try to train her past it. So, but this is going pretty well. She's pretty focused. She's doing the speed control pretty well. A little bit dissociated there. So now I'm clapping and doing different things, getting bigger, getting bigger, getting bigger, getting bigger. There she throws her head the other way, throws her head the other way, and right about, I think it's pretty soon, right about there she actually focused, and then I release. So I know it seems like that's getting her real up and anxious and all this stuff, but you have to do what it takes to get her focused first and then let her relax. Her being relaxed without being focused is no good at all. Here I'm just leading her forward a little bit, getting her to kind of untrack her feet. There, and she stayed focused as I walked up to her. Good. So here I'm just trying to put the reins over her head so I can start riding her. And you can see, I think what she thinks I'm doing is, because I've done so much groundwork where I cue her to go somewhere by putting out my arms, she thinks that just basically putting out my arms to put the reins over her head means she needs to go somewhere, and it makes her a little anxious. So it's just part of building the communication with her that that doesn't mean things. You know, there's a ton of things in the world that don't mean anything, or we don't want them to mean anything to the horse, right? Like all the construction going on behind us, at that building you can see right there. Um, if a plastic bag blows across the arena or something, you know, there's all kinds of things that we don't want to cue the horse to do something. But then there's a few things we want to definitely use to cue the horse, like pointing or like kicking them or the reins. And so it's just a matter of, you know, getting her to learn that there's a difference between those two, and putting the reins over her head is one of those. So there, she still thinks there's something. I'm going to wait till she brings her head back to center, and then I release. And that's how you want to do that. And anytime you're especially working around their head, if they start throwing their head around, and you know, same thing with worming. If you're trying to do the tube of wormer in their mouth and they're throwing their head around, you want to leave it there until the head comes back to where you want it, usually which is neutral and kind of low, and then you take the thing away. In this case, back up with the reins. But I do love how after a little interaction like that, that could have been a little bit, you know, could have gotten her a little bit frazzled. She comes right back down and is right back there with me. It didn't have to be a big deal. So here I'm doing lateral flexion. So this is all kind of part of my pre-flight checklist, kind of, if you will, before you get on really any horse, unless you just really, really trust them and you've ridden that horse a ton. Before you get on, you want to make sure that they can do all the groundwork we just did, which is speed control, stopping when you ask, going when you ask, speeding up, slowing down, staying soft to the inside of that circle. And then you want to go up and do lateral flexion, both sides. Make sure that their eye turns in with their head as they do the flexion. Make sure that they can put slack in that rein. Their head doesn't bounce back to the front as you let go of that flexion. And then I think the next thing I'm going to do here is some shoulder control. I think that's what I do next. So shoulder control, I'm going to pick up, say in this case, the left rein, and I'm going to lay it across her neck, and that should cue her shoulder to step away, and her front left foot should step over her front right foot. Yeah, that's what I'm about to do here. So here I lay the left rein across her neck. Now that left rein is the cue. The aid, or the backup, is going to be, if I was on her back, it would be my left foot or in my spur. Since I'm not riding her, my right hand and my right thumb is going to kind of kick her, if you will, right where my foot would be, where the stirrup is. So I lay that rein there. I'm kind of kicking her with my hand, or what would be my foot. And there, you couldn't really see it, but her front left foot stepped over her front right foot. And that's exactly what we want. Going to it again. She's pretty good at yielding on this side. Her right side, she's not quite as good at yielding on. So it just needs a little bit more work. She's not terrible, and just not as good. She gets a little pushy on this side. Always want to start off with lateral flexion. There you can see her eye came pretty good. Lay the rein across her neck. You can see right there that shoulder's kind of bulging into us instead of yielding away from us. That wasn't too bad. Asking for it again. You can see the hips moving a lot more than the shoulder. The shoulder should be the thing that's moving here. And then we want to finish that off with lateral flexion. That exercise is going to get them pretty stiff by design. It's a straight line exercise. And so you always have to finish that up by loosening up that neck again. A little bit better. You can see that shoulder yielded. She's still not really yielding it into a C shape where her shoulder gets farther away from us than her face and hip, but it's better than it was. And I think what I'm explaining here is the purpose of getting those shoulders yielding left and right is you got to get those freed up. If those are stuck, it's going to hinder pretty much everything else you want to do. Getting those shoulders freed up and athletic is like the most important thing, the most important body part of the horse. Everything else is trying to get to the shoulders, basically. So I think I'm just about ready to get on and ride here. You could say she passed all my pre-flight checks. Not everything is perfect, but everything is good enough that I feel safe. And a big part of that feeling safe on a horse for me is not necessarily even how they do each one of those exercises, but how they react when one of them doesn't go very well. Because if I'm on her back and I've got to start disciplining her, or really, if I ask her to do something and she does the wrong thing, and I've got to keep asking her to do that, is she going to search for the answer and work with me and figure it out? Or is she going to get pissy and maybe potentially do something dangerous, and kind of freak out and lose her mind? And she's convinced me pretty well that she's going to um, keep her brain and just help me and figure out what I'm asking her, and that's all I can ask of her. So I'm ready to jump on here. I'll just note here that as I'm cinching this up, you can see I'm putting the pin in. I think I'm. Oh, it takes me a second to cinch her up here. I put it through an extra time and then take it back out. But anyway, what I was going to say is make sure you do put the pin in your cinch, and then don't tie the knot that a lot of people seem to do. Um, there's a deal that some people do where they take the free end and then they wrap it around the entire cinch and then back through the metal buckle and back down, so it kind of forms a knot, and then they'll leave the pin out. Don't do that. That's just, for one thing, it's not, it doesn't look professional. It's not how the professionals do it. That pin can be dangerous just poking out there, and that knot can actually loosen up, and your cinch can come loose, which is not something you want. So put the pin in, do it correctly, punch more holes in your latigo if you need to, make sure your tack fits right and that there's a hole where you need it, and use good leather latigos, not polyester, those sorts of things. So anyway, all right, we're on. So the first thing I'm going to do on every horse that I jump on is lateral flexion. So here I think I'm going to do, let's see, I'm going to probably do it to the right. Also, as I'm jumping on, notice her feet did not move. If her feet moved as I got on, then we've got issues and I need to be doing something else. But I did all my groundwork correctly, and so she knows as I jump on, there's no need to move because that's not a cue to do anything. There I do lateral flexion to the right. She did really good there. She was nice and soft. And I'm going to do lateral flexion to the left. Right there. Okay, so she has a little bit of tension in the right side of her neck because as I asked her face to go to the left, she couldn't do it without moving her feet. And so what you're going to do to help that is just hold on to that flexion until she stops moving her feet and her face is soft, and then you can release. What this exercise does is it loosens up the muscles in the opposite side of the neck that you're pulling on. So her left side of her neck was nice and soft, and that's why she was able to do lateral flexion to the right so easily. But her right side was a little stiff, and then she tried to move her feet to get away from that pressure. And all I said was, no, the moving your feet's not going to get you away from the pressure. You have to actually loosen up that side of the neck. And to do that, their feet have to come to a complete stop, and their neck has to get loose. There, her neck is a lot looser. Much better. So there's no reason to go forward on a horse if their neck is stiff. You're just asking for problems. If they can't stand in one place and bend to a stop and bend into lateral flexion, it's unreasonable to think that you're going to go faster or go forward and be able to bend them down to a stop. I'm pretty particular on these things at very slow speeds or even at a standstill because I don't want to have to work on them going fast. I want them to work just fine by the time we go fast. So I think what I'm talking about here is you can see how her head is kind of a little bit up. And when I do that lateral flexion, ideally when I let go of the lateral flexion, I want her head to come back to either flat or down from where it was in the flexion. What happened that last time was I did the flexion and I let go and her head went back to up. So she's kind of tensing her neck as I go there. So here I'm going to go ahead and pull on both reins and just see if she can do vertical flexion right there. She's softened at the pole and kind of loosened up the top of her neck. So that's kind of a different technique, a different way to get to the same outcome that she's loosening up that neck. Picking up on the reins, and there she loosens up and her head comes down just slightly. And it's not about her head coming down, it's about the muscles in her neck softening and relaxing and bending at the pole and giving to the bit. So don't think about, oh, I'm trying to get my horse's head down. That's not, the head down really doesn't matter at all. The head down is a thing that will happen if their shoulders are working correctly and their head and neck are loose, which are all things you want. But if you just force the head to go down and you don't get those other things, then there's no point at all. So here I'm seeing if I can pick up one-handed, and she relaxes and bends at the pole. Now I probably wouldn't be doing this on a younger, more inexperienced horse. As far as pulling on both reins at the same time, I would be only still pulling on single reins. But I know she has more riding experience, and she may have done some of this stuff before. So I'm going ahead and using both reins and seeing how it's going. Good lateral flexion. I think I may just be waiting for a lick and a chew here. The more times you can do something that potentially gets her a little bit up, and then you can wait for a lick and a chew and have her get all the way back down, the better. Up meaning anxious, and down meaning totally calm. You want her to have lots and lots of experience going through that mental range of up to down. So here I went ahead and asked her to walk off, and I'm going to start out using a lot of direct rein, just basically doing lateral flexion, but not going all the way into the flexion, just picking up that rein, bending her slightly, and seeing if she just follows her nose, which she is. I really like how you can just kind of barely see the left corner of her face right there. See how she's driving into that turn well? Oh, there I'm going to go full into lateral flexion, I think. Okay, so what's happening there is I'm asking her to bend to a stop, and her feet didn't come to a stop. She kept moving her feet in order not to get as soft as I wanted her to. So then she finally stopped moving her feet, got soft, and then I let go and give her a little bit of a reward. Then I'm going to ask her to walk off and do the same thing again. So that my initial kind of protocol is, as we're going forward, I'm going to pick up on that rein, and if they softly steer, then the reward is I just let go of the rein and we just walk forward and they get that release. But if they don't softly steer and follow their nose, then I go into that lateral flexion and they actually have to get real soft because they have to do more work. It's the whole make the wrong thing hard and the right thing easy principle. All right, so we're going to walk her off again. And there I'm using just a little bit of outside rein or indirect rein or neck rein, all different terms for basically the same thing. And seeing, since I know that she has been ridden a lot before, I'm kind of testing to see if she knows how to get off of that indirect rein. I love how low her head is. She's just walking out nice and calm. Like I said, this is a pretty cold day and there's all that construction going on over there. So for her to be this chill is really good. And there's some kind of muddy, slick spots in that pen over there, so I'm trying to avoid those. So there I picked up on that neck rein, and she kind of looked into it instead of, she looked into the rein like my hand is indicating there, instead of getting off of that rein and looking into the turn that I wanted her to make. So I backed up my indirect rein, which was the right rein, with a left direct rein, and got her to actually look through that circle. Then I could, or that turn, same thing here, right indirect rein, bring in the left direct rein, and then she does the kind of turn that I want, and then I can release both. I guess I didn't feel like she got soft enough there, so I'm going to go ahead and go into lateral flexion right there. Checking on that lateral flexion. That was pretty good. Haven't flexed to the right in a little bit, so we'll get that. And then I think I'm going to go into a right circle here, but let's see. Oh, I guess this is where I'm talking about that lateral flexion and having her head come back to a high point in the middle or low. It's just an indicator of how soft the muscles in her neck are. Okay, so I bend her to the left. You can't quite see her head. There you can see her head. Okay, now when it comes back to center, see how it elevated right there? So that means she's not truly relaxed. Okay, now watch where her head is. There it went down just a little bit. It's better. Okay, so I'm walking her off again. I like how her head and neck are nice and soft and low. You see how doing that lateral flexion helped that. She's getting off that indirect or outside rein pretty well right here. Let's see how she comes through this turn. Okay, she didn't quite make that right turn the way I wanted, so I had to pick up that direct or right rein there. Adding the indirect rein, she kind of came around that turn. There, I like her headset there. Like how you can just barely see that inside of her face on the right side there. I think this is where I'm talking about the saddle, so it kind of keeps slipping. It's not always the same direction, it's kind of both directions. And I don't know if that's just the shape of her back. Obviously, that saddle, it fits her well, but it's not, made for her. It's a saddle I use on most of the horses I ride. So it could be that, or there could be something chiropractically wrong in her back that needs to be worked on. So, but this is looking good. That's the shape of her neck I want. See how I'm on a nice loose rein. She's soft to the reins. She's soft to those turns. That's really good right there. I think she's looking at that tarp over there or something. But so her ears kind of got pinned onto something, and then I used the reins and I just quickly asked for her attention back, and it came right back to me. See how her ears are on me now. She's very, very focused on what I'm asking her to do. Very present. Getting the horse focused and present is a whole lot harder under saddle than it is on the ground, which is why we spend so much time on the ground getting them there. But it's just as important to be aware of where your horse, maybe more important, to be aware of where your horse's mind is once you get on the saddle. It's just a lot harder to fix. Okay, there I didn't really like how she bent in that right turn. I'm not sure if I was asking her to stop or if she just stopped there. I'm not sure. She's starting to get a little distracted here, so I'm just going to kind of ask her to do something and bring her focus back. So here I'm kind of going into a figure eight, so some bend to the right and then some bend to the left, making sure that she can go in two different directions like that, back to back, and not get super stiff in her neck, but she did really good right there. But you can see how she just has a tendency to throw her head out to the outside of that circle, and I keep having to bring it back to the inside, and she comes back easily, but it's just like in the groundwork at the beginning of this video when she would hit the end of the reins and then she'd come back, but she kept hitting the end of the reins. Eventually, I want her to keep that frame without me having to bring her head back to the center. Right there, she wants to stick her head to the outside, and I have to bring her back. But I love how every time I bring her back, she comes back. She just doesn't stay there or do it on her own. That was nice right there. You can see how soft she is to those reins every time you pick up on them. That's great. She's starting to keep her head to the inside a little bit more. Still not perfect. I didn't like that one as much. You can see the difference if you back it up and watch that one. You can see the difference how I picked up on that rein, and she said, oh, I'm kind of sick of bending to the inside. I think I'm just going to look over here. And she got stiff and didn't want to give to that rein. So I took her into full lateral flexion. Said it's going to be even more difficult if you don't want to give to that rein. Overall, though, she's doing really, really good with being soft to the reins. Just few little times, but you want to be that picky so that you have a horse that's really soft. If you're not that picky, then if you're that picky sometimes but not always, then you're going to come across as inconsistent to your horse, and it's not fair to the horse, and she's going to get mad. If you're never that picky, you're not going to have a horse that's soft to the reins at all. They're just going to pull through. So there, I went in and switched scenes. I wanted to check the camera, and that's when I realized the iPhone wasn't working, but my GoPro was, and so I got off for a second and got right back on and restarted this video. But I wanted to get some trotting in before the end of the session. So I think this is where I'm asking her to trot. Okay, where are you into the trot? You can see she got kind of some pissy ears, just like she does on the ground, and I'm hoping that's a chiropractic issue. And it's not terrible, but it definitely is an issue. But she's still trotting really nice. She's getting off that outside rein. You can see that right rein comes in contact with her neck right there, and she gets off of it. So whenever you're riding, make sure when you contact with that outside rein, like right there, when she gets off of it, give her a place to go. Because if your right hand or right rein in this case just goes with her and stays on there, she's going to just give up on it and be like, well, there's no way to get off of it. So make sure that you give her a place between your reins that she can find with no pressure on her neck either way. That was a pretty good little trot right there. You can't really see it in the video, but I think she licked and chewed or at least put her head down a little bit. And I think that's why I stopped trotting right there. That was a nice turn right there. You might even back that up and watch it. I laid that right rein. That was good too right there. Laid that right rein on her neck, the indirect rein, and she looks into the turn. Really like that right there. Now here she turned a little, let's see. Maybe I asked her to trot here. I'm not sure. Anyway, she's turning really good. Kind of having to drive her up through this section, I think. She gets a little lazy, wants to walk. You can see her head and neck are getting a little bit stiffer there, and then she gets a little softer. And next time, and this is the first day riding her literally, and so that's why I'm in this pen, and it's kind of hard ground and not very big. I didn't even know if I would get to trotting her today. I just wanted to see if I could walk around on her and steer and have her steer softly. And so we're getting farther than I thought, and so I probably won't trot in this pen a whole lot more because, like I said, it's hard ground and small. But but she's doing great, and I'm not going to lope in that pen. It's not really big enough. So here I'm using both reins and asking her to basically start collection. I'm asking her to get soft to both reins, more vertical flexion than lateral flexion, and still drive up into that circle. So now instead of bending to a stop, I'm asking her just to bend vertically and keep driving her feet with her head and neck softening. What she tends to do is stop her feet and then she can soften her neck. And that's very common. Lots of horses do that. They have a hard time softening their neck while they're moving their feet. And the reason is they use their head and neck to counterbalance. And it's almost like they wave their head and neck as this big stiff pole kind of, and that helps them move their feet without actually having to engage their back and core muscles. And what I'm asking her to do here by loosening her head and neck and giving to the reins is it's forcing her to pick up her shoulders and drive up with her hips and use her body correctly. But it's super important that she learns to do that because using her core, using her back, all that stuff, that's what's going to keep her from getting sway backed in the future. That's what's going to keep her from getting tons of injuries. It's going to make her a much smoother ride. There's all kinds of good things that comes from that right there. So this is good right here. She's just trotting out, loose rein. Now I'm trying to steer one-handed, but she didn't really look into it like I wanted. So I went ahead and picked up with the right hand and got that direct rein involved. And as soon as I got that direct rein involved, she did really well. Right there, I'm using both reins, going one-handed to see if she'll do it. And she did. That was excellent. That's the frame that I want her to be in. Here I'm asking her to stop and back up. I want her to back soft and straight, but I also haven't done a lot of backing. Well, no backing ever basically with her because this is the first ride. So I'm gonna release after just literally like one step or one, one stride. When she commits to that backup, I'm gonna release very quickly. Go back and check my lateral reflection. It still works very well. Probably better than it was at the beginning actually, which is fantastic. Now you can see, well, her head went up just a little right there. It almost started to come back down when she was coming back from that left side lateral flexion. That was really cool. And then I'm just going to be done for the day right there. And that's the whole ride. So hope you enjoyed that. I pretty much accomplished everything I wanted to, and that actually got a lot further than I thought I would. We got some good, introductory groundwork in there. Got her in a really good mental space. Walked, steered quite a bit, used both reins, got her soft at the pole. We trotted, got her steering, soft at the trot. I just want to keep working at that trot and get her a little bit more consistent, a little bit better, and then get in a better pen with better footing and work on going from the trot to the lope. Really the next kind of project for her. But she's super fun to ride, very light, very soft. Yeah, just a really cool horse overall. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that. We'll talk to you later.